Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating the winged wrap. That is a free pattern you can find on mooglyblog.com, and on the written pattern you'll find all the details, including a crochet symbol chart. And for this pattern it uses 2 balls of Lion Brand Shawl in a Ball and a USJ or 6mm hook. This one is a Furls Candy Shop hook. Now, I made this pattern using the Calming Desert colorway of Shawl in a Ball, but since then, right afterwards, of course, they came out with these awesome metallics. Let's see if you can kind of see, it's got lots of glitter in there. It's a shiny thread wound right along the yarn. So that is absolutely beautiful. So for this video, I will be demonstrating using the new Shawl in a Ball, and this one is the Namaste Neutrals colorway. So we'll get a sneak peek of that too. So here we have the finished wrap. I've kind of squinched it up so we can see it here. It's a rectangular wrap, and for the most part it's just double crochet and chain 1 mesh. Pretty simple. The addition, the wings if you will, are these chain 5 loops that come down a row like so, pairs of those working across. And that gives this shawl just a little bit of extra movement and works really well with the colorways of Shawl in a Ball. So let me go ahead and set that aside and we'll get started. All right, so here we are. We're going to make the winged wrap, which begins as written with a chain of 184. However, if you want to change the length of the shawl, because we're working side to side, what you can do is start with any multiple of 10 plus 4. So, for the purposes of demonstration, I started with a chain of 24, which is 10 times 2 plus 4. So, to begin row 1, after you finish your chaining, what we're going to do is skip the 5 chains closest to the hook and work a double crochet in that in the 6th chain. So, with this yarn, I don't know if you can see on camera here, it is kind of hard to tell sometimes what part of the chain you're working into. I like to try to work into the back loop. If you like working under the top 2 loops, that's fine too. It's whatever you prefer. And if you really can't tell where you are on here, if you're an experienced crocheter, you can just sort of eyeball it where the next chain should be. I don't think anyone's going to get close enough to the finished item to say, you went in a different part of the chain this time. So go ahead and work into this chain. You know, like I say, try to be consistent, try to do your best, but if you need to work into a different part, that's fine too. So let's go ahead and get moving on this. We're going to skip the first 5 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then in the next one, we are going to work a double crochet, just like so. Now, the 5 chains that we skipped are going to count as a double crochet. Let's see here. We've got a double crochet, a chain 1, and a skip 1. So when you skip those 5, that's sort of how we need to think of those 5 skipped ones. So if you were counting stitches at this point, you'd count 2 double crochets. So from there, row 1 couldn't be easier. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. And that's what we'll do all the way across row 1. So I will see you when we get there. Okay, so if you've done your counting your chains correctly, then you should be working a double crochet in the very last chain of your chains. So once you've got this row done, that's row 1. Rows 2 and 3 are exactly the same. Of course, we start a little differently. We're going to start with a chain of 4 that counts as our first double crochet in chain 1, and then we simply double crochet in the top of that next double crochet there. You can see that starts making our little mesh. So from here we just chain 1, double crochet in the next double crochet on across, and that's row 2 and row 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and get to the end of row 2. We'll skip row 3 and get started with the rest of the pattern. Okay, so here I'm coming to the end of row 2. And one thing to note is when you get to the end of row 2, you're going to have, or any of the plain mesh rows, if you will, you're going to have a series of chains there rather than, of course, a double crochet and a chain 1. So we want to make sure to go into that 3rd chain, if you will, or in this case, since it was the beginning, it was actually the 4th chain, but we want to leave 1 in between that double crochet and then go into the next one. So we can sort of skip one and then double crochet in the next double crochet. And of course that right there does count as a double crochet. Now rows 2 and 3 are exactly the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and pretend I've got 3 rows of mesh here for the sake of time. So now it is time for row 4. And row 4 is where we do our first row with wings, if you will. So this is where it gets interesting. We're going to chain 1, work a single crochet right back in that first double crochet there, like so. And then we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now after we chain 5, the instructions say to skip 2 double crochets, so 1 and 2, and work a slip stitch in the chain 1 space of the row before the previous row. Now normally we're working into the previous row, but in this case we're going to drop down to this chain 1 space right here. So right on the side of those 2 double crochets, we're going to jump down a row and work a slip stitch right in that chain 1 space, like so. There we are. That's the first half of our wing, our first wing. Then we chain 5 again, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I like to move my thumbs up along the chain as I work a chain to keep the stitches the same size. I find it very helpful. So after I've done that, then I am going to skip the next 2 double crochets. It gets a little wobbly here. Let me straighten it out. So we've slip stitched there. So we're going to skip 2 more double crochets and then work a single crochet in the top of the next one right there. And that is our first wings, our first set of wings, pair of wings. We've got the chain 5, slip stitch, chain 5, single crochet. So that's what we're going to do again. Of course, because we're working our teeny tiny shawl, we're not going to have too many repeats here. This will be the last one, but we chain 5, skip 2, 1, 2, come down to the chain 1 space of the row before the previous row, right there, and work a slip stitch right around that chain 1 space, like so. Then chain 5 again, 2, 3, 4, 5, and skip those next 2 and work a single crochet in the top of the next one. So remember to skip a chain there, skip a chain there, and then single crochet in the chain after that. I like to use my hook as needed to tease apart those strands there. And that is how you work row 4. So row 5 is going to be sort of an in-between mesh row. What we're going to do is chain 1, single crochet in the first one there, just as before. Then we're going to work our mesh. We're going to chain 1 and working in front of the chain 5s. Remember, since we've turned, those chain 5s are now on the back of our work. So we want to basically ignore those. We're going to move to the next double crochet from the row before the previous row, and we're going to work our double crochet right in there. So if it helps, you can put your fingers right in between the chain 5 and the last mesh row to help you keep those chain 5s out of the way. So we're going to chain 1, double crochet in the next one, and just work our mesh on across again. The difference here is that after we've made 4 double crochets like this, ignoring our wings from the previous row, we will come to a double crochet that is worked into with that single crochet in between the wings. So you've got a single crochet, chain 1 double, chain 1 double, chain 1 double, chain 1 double on across 4 times, then chain 1 again, and then we look here at this next one. Now, because it folds over, you have to really watch for this. It'll fold over so it looks like it's just another double crochet, but really that has a chain 1 in it that anchored our wings. So that's the chain 1, or excuse me, not a chain 1, a single crochet that anchored between our wings. So we want a single crochet right back into that stitch. 2 single crochets are about the height of a double crochet, so you can see how that works out. Then once again, it's chain 1, double crochet in the mesh of the previous row there, the next double crochet, chain 1, and do it on across. Once again, we'll have 4 double crochets in between each of the single crochets in this row. And of course, chain 1s between all the stitches. And that's just a good visual cue to help make sure that you're on track, that you haven't lost your place haven't missed one of those single crochets. They tend to fold over like I showed you and try to hide. So we've got our next single crochet, 4 double crochets. We must be at the end. And here we are. There's that single crochet. So we finish off with a single crochet right in there. And that is row 5. You can see our wings are hiding in back there. Well, they're about to be in front because it's time for row 6. And row 6 is going to be exactly the same as what we did in row 4. Start with the chain 1, single crochet there. There we are. And once again, I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, I need to pull up some more yarn here. Going through a fair bit of it in this demo. There we go. Lots of yarn to use. So after we chain 5, we come back and look at our mesh again. We skip 2 of the double crochets we just made, and we're going to slip stitch in that next chain 1 space of the row previous. So that'll be directly above the previous slip stitch. So just go up a row and work your slip stitch right there. Like I say, at this point, you don't even really need to be counting your stitches so much, although it's always a good idea to help you keep track and avoid mistakes. You can use the other stitches around you as a visual clue now. So we'll skip those next 2 and we'll come back to where those single crochets are and work another single crochet. So you can see the wings just stack directly on top of each other. There's one set there and another set there. So let's do the same thing again. We chain 5, then we come over here, find our previous slip stitch, our next slip stitch in the chain 1 space of the row directly above it, like so, and then chain 5 again to finish up that set. 4 and 5. Then, because we're only doing 2 repeats here, this will end in the last single crochet. Otherwise it would be another single crochet and then more wings on across. So that is how you work row 6. So now we've got our two sets of wings here, one directly on top of the other. Now from there, it's mostly setting up some mesh rows to get us a little bit of space before our next set of wings. So for row 7, we're going to repeat row 5. We chain 1, single crochet in the first one there. There we are. And then chain 1, and then again, ignoring those wings, 'cause remember now they're in back, we're going to make our mesh in the double crochets of the previous row. And once again, of course, it'll be 4 double crochets in between each single crochet. So after you've made this row, which again is row 7, then the next row, row 8, will be exactly the same as rows 2 and 3, where you're just working a simple mesh. The only difference will be that sometimes you're working into single crochets left behind in this row. Because you can see, we still have to work a single crochet in the single crochet here. So for the next row of mesh, even though it's just regular double crochet mesh with no single crochets in it, you will have to work into some single crochets. But otherwise, it's exactly the same as rows 2 and 3, where we just double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 across. Working, remember, into just the stitches themselves. That's one thing to remember about this pattern. With this pattern, you only work into stitches. The only time you work into a chain 1 space is in the center of each wing. Otherwise, skip all the chain spaces. So we are working our way across here, and I've got one more stitch in row 7. There we go. And there you can see, we've got our teeny tiny shawl sample. And it's so pretty and sparkly. Let me pull back up the original shawl here. There we are. Sorry, it was trying to cling to some of my other hooks here off to the side. And I've got it upside down. Let me spread it out a little bit here so we can see. It's basically 2 sets of wings, the mesh, 2 sets of wings, and the mesh. And that is the repeat. We just keep repeating Let me double check here with my written instructions. Rows 3 through 8. So mesh rows, mesh row here through the wings, on up through a couple more mesh rows. And also on the written pattern, as I stated before, there is a stitch chart to help make this a little bit easier. It uses just over 1 ball of Lion Brand shawl in a ball. I wanted to give it a nice wide or tall, depending on how you think of it, wearable shawl width. So I did use 2 balls of the shawl in the ball. If you wanted to make it a little bit narrower, you could go with just 1 ball. So, and if you wanted to make it wider, you could keep going with the second ball, as many repeats as you like. So that's how you make the winged wrap. I hope this video has helped you out, and I hope you liked it. If so, please do let us know in the comments and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much for watching.